Hello, my name is Gregorio Rojas. I am one of the co-founders of Sabio, also the head instructor at Sabio, a developer boot camp run out of Los Angeles and Irvine, California. This is another video in our series of videos about imposter syndrome and how to inoculate yourself against imposter syndrome. And how do you do that? You do that by asking questions. And you ask questions even when they're tough questions, even when it's a tough time. It's important to ask these questions like these, when it's the scariest time to ask these questions. And so this question is also about the interview process. Interview process, what happens at interviews, and the kinds of questions that you're going to find that are really empowering and reassuring to yourself as you're going through a process where people are judging you and judging whether or not you have the appropriate skill set to be a software developer, to be a senior software developer, to get that raise, to get a promotion, to move up within an organization. And so here's another story about what another woman, a developer, faced in their interview process. And so if you've never been through the interview process, they can take many forms. It could be one person, rapid fire questions at you. It could be you whiteboarding in front of one person. It could be you whiteboarding, answering rapid fire questions in front of a panel of people. Maybe they take turns, 2 people at a time, 2-3 hours. They can take many forms. One of the forms that they can take is that they can give you a problem to solve live in front of them, right? So sometimes in front of a computer, sometimes it'll be just something that you have to whiteboard. And so one of our developers was giving a problem to solve live in front of a developer, right? In front of a developer live, here, go. Fix this problem, provide a solution for this problem. Now, unfortunately, she couldn't do it. Which, by the way, it's not that hard to take someone in a room under these circumstances, giving them a question that they could probably solve if they were just sitting quietly in front of their computer. But somehow, the interview, you get nervous, you get a little rattled. The person in front of you might be a little intimidating. You might have just had a bad morning. They might have had a bad morning. It's not that hard to get something wrong in an interview. And it's also not that hard that when you get something wrong in an interview, for you to let it affect you in such a way that the whole interview just gets away from you. You lose your mind. You start spiraling out of control. Right? It's happened to me. Right? I mean, it happens to everybody. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing, that you would find yourself in a situation where you cannot provide an answer to a solution. Let me tell you that right out. That happens to everybody. But here's the real thing that I never thought to do myself, is that when presented with this situation, when she found herself like, look, I can't do this for you, she asked him to do it for her. All right? Show me the answer to this situation, make this thing run. And it was a really great thing. It was something that you could run. It wasn't just a theoretical thing like, oh, let me just write some variables up here and it would work. Trust me, this would work. This was actually something that you could run. He couldn't do it. So here's a person that not only, it's one thing to walk into an interview room, not know what someone's going to ask you and not be able to get the answer. But how about being the interviewer, having, knowing what question, what problem, what chunk of code you're going to present to a person as they come in and interview for your company, walking into that room, knowing the question, probably being an author of it, deciding whether or not this was a good question or not, and then not being able to provide the solution yourself. You got no pressure. You knew the answer ahead of time. You should have known the answer ahead of time. You knew the question ahead of time. And you still can't answer this question. And it's based on this question that you're going to judge whether or not that developer is going to get a job, right? This is how you're going to be judged. So this is really important, right? So anytime you find yourself in that situation, don't feel like you can't ask, can you help me with that answer? Do so nicely, do so professionally, because you will find that many people across from the table will be very nice. And as long as the question and the answer doesn't take up the whole interview, most people will help you out and try to point you in the right direction. And, then there's these people who will not be able to even provide an answer for you. The guy was nice enough to try, so that I'll say that for them. But in my opinion, why are you going to ask me this question and then judge my potential employment opportunity here based upon something that you in this building can't do yourself, right? And so take from this the idea that sometimes the interview process is not fair. It's not fair. It's not appropriate. It's not actually a true reflection about what they do behind the scenes, even when the question is known ahead of time, even though when the problem is known ahead of time, they still can't do what they're asking you to do, right? And so it's a little bit of this hypocrisy that exists a lot in the interview process, because the stuff that they ask you about and the stuff that they want you to have done is stuff that they don't know and stuff that they don't put in practice. It's something that's not part of their software development lifecycle anyway, right? So take that and find opportunities that when you go to an interview, it's not just them that is interviewing you, you're interviewing them as well, right? So remember that when you go into an interview process, and know that the people in front of you are also there to answer your questions.
When you leave here, anything is possible. When you come here, you don't want to stay.